Hi there, Internet. I just wanted to make a video about Leica cameras like this one. This is an M6. And some of the opinions I've heard on YouTube and around the Internet and in articles and things like that. And there's strong opinions that are both sort of in favor of Leicas and against Leicas as well. And some of the things people say that I think are kind of interesting. So this is just my opinion on other people's opinions. And if you've got an opinion, it'd be great if you put a comment below or a link to something else. That'd be great. Okay. First and foremost, Leicas are considered to be quite expensive, especially for used film cameras. And I know that because I waited a long time before I got this baby. And I think a lot of the strong opinions you get come from the price of Leicas in general, because new Leicas are very expensive and the lenses are very expensive. And I think if they weren't so expensive, people's opinions would be different. So I think it's really about accessibility, and people get pissed off because they can't afford something that they would like. So for example, my brother was very successful in his business and his career. So at some point a few years ago, he bought himself a Rolex. And he paid quite a lot of money for it. I'm not sure exactly how much, but I know how much Rolex watches, genuine Rolexes, cost. And I looked at it a few years ago and I kind of went, whatever. I was not really into it. And I thought, well, that's great. I don't really need a Rolex. But if he'd just had an ordinary watch, a $100 watch, I wouldn't have even offered an opinion. I wouldn't even thought about it. And he probably wouldn't have showed it to me. So the price and the prestige and the hype around things causes, people to have an opinion when normally they wouldn't even bother. So I think Leica's kind of the same. They've put themselves at the kind of the top of the tree for analog cameras and digital cameras now that invites opinion. Okay. Now, in terms of price, a used M6 is one of the better deals you can get. I paid about $1,000 US for this. And the lens here, the Voigtlander lens, a cheaper lens, was only about $300 US. So I got a pretty good deal. If I'd have bought the X Pro 2 that I was thinking about and a lens or two to go with that, I would have spent more money. And people don't have opinions about X Pro 2s as much as they do about Leicas. So realistically, any professional photography gear with good lenses is going to be in the Leica range of price. Really, realistically. So I don't think having a Leica makes you a poser any more than having a good camera of any brand makes you a poser. And to call people with good equipment posers is kind of a bit childish, I think. Anyway, so about the design. Now, Leica's famous for having a nice, quiet, simple design, fully manual. The M7 obviously has auto exposure. Listen to that nice, quiet shutter. And really, you can get a camera with way, way, way more features for way less money. But Leica already tried to innovate and change, and nobody liked it. When they brought out the M5, which they thought was a better design at that time, the company almost went bust. So they very quickly went back to the original design. And this is closer to an M4 than it is an M5 in the way it's designed. Also, people talk about the M3 having the best finder ever because it had I think it was 0.91, the finder, a higher magnification, but it didn't allow to put even a 35mm lens on with frame lines. So people talk about the M3 being the ultimate Leica, but they changed it for a different viewfinder magnification 60 years ago or so. And since then, they've been very successful. So it's hard to argue that the M3 is the ultimate machine if they moved away from it. Anyway, so what I think Leica should do is bring back the M3. Remake it, make a few modern tweaks, possibly, like the fast loading of the film and things like that, but bring back the M3 in terms of its rangefinder, viewfinder, the build quality, etc., etc. And I think if they made a sort of a limited edition of several thousand units, they would be instantly collectible. They'd be an instant success. Okay. There's another opinion that I hear all the time about the rangefinder, and that is it's very quiet, unobtrusive, and it's kind of a street photography camera. And I would agree with that. That is true. However, so is this. This is way smaller and more stealthy, and people don't notice it at all because I've been out there and taken street photos. People haven't really cared. Whereas somebody might notice this camera and go, "Ooh, that's nice." They're not going to really do that with this camera because it almost looks like a disposable. Okay, the lens isn't as good as this lens, or definitely not as good as a Leica lens, but you can do a good job. Okay. The other opinion I hear all the time from Leica users that's really interesting is the M6 shoots without batteries. I really like that. Now, if you're using a camera like this and using the meter, if it suddenly goes dead, you're going to be stuck. You're not going to be used to using Sunny 16 or guesstimation or even a handheld meter. You're not going to have one with you. And if you get a phone app with a meter, I've used one and they're not that reliable. So you're probably going to stop shooting and then go find some batteries. Also, if you're such a serious photographer and your project and your mission is so serious, you're not going to be out there without batteries unless you're a bit of an idiot, because you're going to have spare film. You're not going to get 4 on 1 roll of film, and the batteries are tiny. So why not carry a few spares? If you're a serious photographer that demands high quality, blah, 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 carry bloody spares. Anyway, and Leica isn't the only camera that can run without batteries. For example, this can run without batteries, and the Olympus Trip doesn't even need batteries. And again, this is a great street shooting camera. It's got a solar-powered selenium cell meter. Doesn't need batteries, ever. Never an issue, as long as the camera works. So the battery issue, I don't know. It's a nice kind of bonus, but it's not a deal breaker if you think about it. Okay. The other opinion, or one of the other opinions I'm always hearing about Leicas, is that it's kind of a pure photography tool. It should only be used for pure photography. You should only shoot with black and white. You should only use a 50mm because that's what Henri Cartier-Bresson used, who I love his work. I love it. And I love black and white. But to limit yourself to that is kind of silly. If you've got a good camera and you like to use it, you're going to use it for everything. Street shooting, landscapes, family stuff, documentation of just your life, of your life's journey. And I think it's nice to romantically think that, oh, I've got a Leica, I'm going to be a photojournalist. But really, I'm going to just use it for anything I want to. And I think that's the other part of the issue with Leicas, is it conjures up Magnum photography, you know, like Robert Capa and Chim and people like that, and Cartier-Bresson, like I said, and the work they did. This camera is not a magic wand. It doesn't turn you into Henri Cartier-Bresson, unfortunately. I wish it did. If it did, I would have paid way more than the grand I paid. I'd pay 10,000 if it could do that. So let's just, put things into perspective. This camera is good for anything that doesn't require macro or telephoto. If you're using a wide to normal to slightly telephoto lens, like a 90 or a 135 at the most, then this camera is great. It'll do almost anything you want, and it'll do it really well, albeit at the pace of setting the exposure every time and how fast you can do that. That's the limitation. So, at the end of the day, my opinion on the Leica is it's a wonderful camera. I'm glad to own it. I love it. I love using it. But it's just a camera. It's just a nice camera. And the rest is up to me. Okay, so I would love for somebody to post either another video reply or a link to a video about Leicas, or just a written opinion of some kind in the comments. That would be amazing. Thank you for watching, and enjoy shooting your Leica.